now I'm going to move on to the council elections and the presidential address. So first of all, as we have indicated to you previously in a communication, we had a nomination process for the council members and president-elect, but due to us receiving the number of nominations being equal to the number of vacancies, then we didn't need to have an election. And so Lisani Malotsi was elected, duly elected, as president-elect to succeed Peter when he steps into my shoes. We did have an election, though, for the student representative, and I have great pleasure in announcing that the Leroy Alcock is the student representative who was duly elected to this office. So Leroy, thank you for standing for that position. So that gives us the council for 2018. You can see there on the slides, and I'd like to note the new council members who come in as part of the 2018 council, and that is Anne Livingston, Motlatsi Motlanyani, who was co-opted onto council last year, and also Paul Zondag. And thank you so much to those council members who are continuing their service to the profession, and for the willingness of the new council members to step into this role. I'd also like to make particular mention of the council members who are retiring. So to Toby Hope, to Johan Leroux, and to Nico van der Kolf, thank you so much for your support and contribution during your terms of office. It really is appreciated. And I'd also like to thank Stephanie De Silva for serving as the student representative this year. I'm really pleased that she is no longer eligible to stand for this position as she has completed her exams. Okay, so now the end is near. I face my final curtain. I hope you get that reference. I must say that it has been the greatest honor to serve this profession as president. I have had the most amazing time, and I hope that I have done it my way. There have been some challenges, but I have had an incredible time and have had the opportunity to be involved in so many interesting and stimulating discussions and projects. I continue to be in awe of the incredible people who are South African actuaries, and the team at the ASA office who have been so committed in making this job really not that difficult. It has been really wonderful working with you all. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and experience. It will stay with me forever. So I would really like to now call upon Peter Withey to receive this medal and take on the mantle. Peter, I'm going to wish you well to wear it and take the profession forward. They really are quite a good bunch.
They are indeed. My first honor is to present Roseanne with her past president's medal.
Thank you so much.
You will note that I was not brave enough to try and pin it on her. 2 years ago, I sat in this same room, having just been elected as the new president-elect of ASA for 2016-2017 and president for 2018-2019. At that time, the concept of being president of this society was still a little theoretical, but now the reality is rapidly arriving. It is a bit like that first experience of qualifying as a fellow. It's all a bit unreal until you sign that first report or letter as a FASA, and then it hits home. So here I stand now with the concept of being the 60th president of ASA, and starting in 3 months' time, or thereabouts, serving you for the next 2 years is almost a reality. I am filled with a myriad of emotions. To mention a few: honor at what you have afforded me, apprehension at what challenges we might see and what uncharted waters we might need to cross over the next 2 years. Confidence in the people of this profession who will be able to deal with any such challenge. Humility and comfort that I do not serve this alone, that I serve together with others, since the presidency of ASA is not a solo affair. I look forward to working with the highly competent staff in the office, the new president-elect, Lusani, and the council to grow and develop this profession further. I'm also very mindful that I stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before. And in this regard, I would specifically like to acknowledge Roseanne, who has led us so ably for the last 2 years, and who I have had the privilege and pleasure of working with and learning from over this time. Thank you, Roseanne. In my president-elect information sheet 2 years ago, and you can't expect to read this, I stated the following: in answer to the question, in my view, the biggest challenge facing the actuarial society at present is the continued relevance of the profession to the South African environment. With increasing competition from other professions and disciplines, actuaries and ASA need to remain relevant. 2 particular elements stand out. Valued professionals. It is imperative that the profession continues to be seen as valued professionals, adding value to employers, clients, and wider communities. Failure in this area runs the risk that we become seen as technical experts rather than valued professionals. This needs to apply in our traditional areas of expertise, but also needs to extend to other areas such as banking, risk management, and data analytics. Remember, I said this 2 years ago. We're already well on the path. Transformation was the second aspect that I spoke of. If ASA's current demographic profile does not rapidly change, we run the risk of losing credibility in the South African context and will become less relevant to society as a whole and less desirable as a professional option for bright young students. We need to make concerted efforts at all levels in the path to qualification to increase the number of South African black fellow members. In answer to the question, if elected as president-elect, I shall try to, I answered I will seek to continue to build on the foundations laid by previous presidents to react to the challenges noted above. I will also continue to develop and build on the competence and stature of South African actuaries in the global actuarial community. For a relatively small association by international standards, I believe that we carry far greater influence than our size indicates. This is due to the roles played by South African actuaries in the international actuarial and insurance world, as well as innovations like the development of the banking fellowship qualification. We must jealously guard this reputation by continued involvement and by ensuring the quality of South African actuaries. I remain convinced that these views are as valid today as they were then when I penned them. And I trust that you will see these aspects flow through this address and through my presidency. Now, Roseanne has had in her presidency the theme of relevance, proportionality, and integrity. And at risk of getting an FA or lower because of plagiarism, when the academics in the room mark this address, I intend for my theme for my presidency to be relevance. I see this theme playing out in 3 aspects. Relevance as ASA and as individual actuaries to society and the public. Relevance of ASA to our members, and relevance as ASA to the broader international actuarial community. At the start of this year, Council held a strategic planning workshop, and out of that came a number of themes that I believe are also woven into all these aspects of relevance. Transformation, research, education, communication, and volunteerism were the top 5. The new council will need to revisit these and the other 10 that were on the list and confirm and adjust them, but I feel that these will likely remain the same in broad strokes, even if the details may alter. Overriding all of this is the need that we have to deliver on our professional promise. It is the professional promise that differentiates us from being technicians only. How then does one present these intricately interlinked elements in a single picture that we, or at least I, can keep in front of you as I serve you as president? I could go with concentric rings, but that didn't enthuse me. Too boring. I could go with a three-legged stool, or perhaps a rope of 3 strands that anchor together. But I didn't like any of those, and I have chosen what I consider to be a uniquely South African, or at least African image, the 3-legged pot. You might well have wondered why you've seen this theme of the 3-legged pot in the South African actuary and in your conference bags. Well, now the secret is out. So let's talk about this pot. The pot represents the society, it represents ASA, and the contents are professional promise. The 3 legs represent these 3 strands I have spoken of. And the fire represents the strategic priorities that we have identified. If we do not deliver on the strategic priorities, or any one of these legs is missing, the structure cannot deliver. And the product is certainly not optimal. I don't claim to be very good at working with 3-legged pots, and I've spilt stuff into the fire many a time while trying to do that. But so the issue is, how do we make this all work? It is difficult to decide which of these 3 strands to start with. But I've chosen to start with the international strand. One of the selling points of the actuarial profession is the international recognition of the qualification and the profession. In the past, the FIA or FFA designation gave one an international qualification. And the fear of many when the localization of the actuarial fellowship exams supporting the FASA qualification was initiated was that we would lose that portability. This is not the case because of the quality of the FASA designation and the mutual recognition agreements that we have established with many actuarial associations around the world. We continue to work on this and have recently at the IA meetings in Chicago 2 weeks ago open discussion with the American Academy of Actuaries around practicing as an actuary in the USA. However, while the formal agreements might be important, I believe that it is what we do that makes the difference to our international recognition. Let me start off by saying that while I might be a bit biased, I believe that South African actuaries are exceptional and among the best in the world. I do not know what the root cause of this is. Maybe it's the nature of our turbulent history that makes us innovative and resourceful. Maybe it's the early exposure that many actuaries in South Africa get, or is it something else? Nonetheless, South African actuaries are innovative and doers in the actuarial world. It is my understanding that many dynamic product changes over the years, such as dread disease, have emerged in South Africa. And more recently, the preeminent role of the profession in banking and establishment of an outcomes-based CPD truly make us among leaders in the international actuarial world. This can be seen in the IAA, where the ASA is highly respected and often actively consulted alongside organizations that are much larger. This has been reflected in us having over 10% of the leadership roles in the IAA, despite being only the 10th largest association. A number of these roles are in emerging areas, such as microinsurance, banking, and data science, where South Africans are in chairman or vice chairman positions. Only the UK and the US have more people numerically involved in IAA leadership structures than we do. In looking back over previous presidential addresses, I noted that more active involvement in IAA matters was noted as a strategic priority in the early 2000s, and we see the fruit of that today. However, much of this involvement has been through the sterling efforts of a relatively small group of stalwarts, such as the late Garth Griffin in the Sierra space, Desmond Smith as president of the IAA, Peter Doyle as an executive committee member, Emil Stipp in the healthcare space, and Andrew Gladwin in leading the global actuarial syllabus changes, to name but a few. Some of these are now retiring, and a new group is taking their place. And it gives me great pleasure to announce that Roseanne Murphy-Harris has been appointed to the IAA Executive Committee with effect from 1 January 2018. These initiatives need to continue, and we need members to step up and get involved. In my mind, if we do not continue to remain relevant in the international actuarial community, we run the risk of being isolated on the tip of Africa and losing both the ability to influence and the ability to blend international best practice with what works here and to learn from the experience of other markets. May this never happen. This clearly links to the next strand, the relevance to our members. ASA provides the enabling environment for actuaries in South Africa. We have moved from our founding structure almost 70 years ago in 1948 of a group of UK qualified actuaries practicing here in South Africa, forming a society for mutual support and guidance, to a professional body today providing education and accreditation of actuaries in South Africa, as well as all those same support functions and more. In my mind, remaining relevant to our members requires us to provide services that are needed, but also to provide opportunities for members to participate in that. Let me consider some specifics. We provide and must maintain a world-class education system, right from the universities through to associateship and fellowship qualifications. Despite the challenges in the national education system, such as weak maths and science scores and funding challenges, the actuarial education system is clearly relevant to all our categories of membership, both in the service it provides and in the high standing it maintains for us all. However, herein lies both a risk and an opportunity. Our education system is highly dependent on volunteers. So to all of you involved in this aspect of service to the society, I salute you. It is good that this is not too professionalized in order to maintain relevance to the practice of being an actuary. But at the same time, I recognize that it is hard work, and we appeal to our members to continue to step up and serve. We also have extensive structures to provide practice-specific education and professional frameworks for our work, and again, the opportunities to serve are wide and varied. Let me note that volunteerism is a major strength of the society, but also a potential point of risk. So to all of you who are already serving in ASA structures and activities, I acknowledge you and thank you for your service. To those not yet involved, let me remind you today that you enjoy the fruits of those who volunteered in the past, and I challenge you to get involved in the future. Apart from the personal benefits that you will gain from volunteering, it will help you to ensure that the profession remains relevant to its members. We also maintain a strong professionalism culture and the code of conduct. The code of conduct not only sets the standards, but also provides a useful framework and reference point when dealing with tricky issues. It needs to be a helpful framework that is relevant and helpful. It has been a particular reference point for me over the last months as I have considered how my employment with KPMG affects my ability to conduct my role of president, and this is a process that I am continuing to work through. We also have a groundbreaking approach to CPD that we have introduced, and through this convention, seminars, and sessional meetings, we provide opportunities to continue and grow and develop our knowledge. However, one area where I'm not sure we're achieving as much as we should is in the area of research. Research has been identified as one of the key priorities, and it feeds into being able to meet our professional promise and to be seen as thought leaders. Unfortunately, there seems to be a view that this is something that should be parked in the hands of the academics. But we, as a society, believe that there is more that practitioners can and should be doing to extend this. It has been suggested that there is indeed a lot of research happening in industry, but much of that does not reach the public domain because of commercial interests. If so, it would be good if more of this could be brought into the public arena so as to enhance our reputation as thought leaders. However, in our unique context in South Africa, relevance to our members requires ASA to engage with all our members. This is our transformational challenge. While we have made some progress in the space, and here I acknowledge the work done by SAADP, ASABA, and the ASA Academy, transformation requires us to develop a culture of fairness and inclusion so that every member feels welcomed, appreciated, and inspired to succeed and contribute. Evidence suggests that we have not reached that point, and continued change is needed. That change needs to be in the hearts and minds of all of us and requires an open engagement with one another. Let me digress for a moment or two and share some of my own journey in the hope that it might help some people and move this critical dialogue in our profession forward. Let me share from my limited, but hopefully growing understanding, an understanding that has learned that this is way more than an intellectual and cognitive acceptance that change is necessary, and requires self-reflection, introspection, and emotional engagement with it. An understanding that there are deeper aspects, such as the concept and reaction to privilege, which was highlighted in the university protests. And as I have moved on this journey, I have started to read more on this and related topics, to follow some blogs, try to listen to others with diverse views and lived experiences different to myself. My participation in a few facilitated workshops and my involvement with the Transformation Committee over these last 2 years have opened my eyes further and influenced my thinking. I have also started to deliberately try to engage with people in the profession who do not look like me or necessarily share the same worldview. The session at last year's convention, and I thank Shivani for her role in that, and the subsequent sessional meetings have played a role in increasing my understanding, helping me to gain a much better understanding of the complexities of transformation. So what insights or snippets of learning have I gained so far in what I would call my enlightenment on the subject? I have recognized that I have a whole load of unconscious biases, that I need to find a way to uncover these and to deliberately try to deal with them. These can manifest in the words I use, the way I say things, and the attitudes and behaviors that I exhibit. It is because of the realization that I have unconscious biases that manifest in my words and behaviors that if I'm asked today, am I a racist? I am more likely to answer, not intentionally so. Because I'm pretty certain there are times when I say or do things completely unintentionally that could be interpreted as being racist. I've also learned that privilege and white privilege are real and have an impact on opportunity and other aspects of our lives, often without us realizing it. When these words are used, the privileged often feel that there is judgment and guilt to be associated with them. My understanding is that such attitudes and reactions are unhelpful. That privilege is, and once we recognize where we have it, the real challenge is then what we do with it. I've also learned that progress in this area is not anti-white men, but rather that whiteness and maleness should not be seen as normative, and that we must recognize the value and dignity of every person. Ultimately, I think that the most important thing I have learned is that I need to engage and try to listen. To listen to understand rather than to listen to respond. To listen to people who are different from me, even if it is painful to hear some things. One would think that this is obvious. We do it in business strategy sessions by encouraging alternative views. But when it comes to something as personal as transformation, we tend to shy away from it and prefer to talk in the bubble of like-minded people. I have learned that we need to turn the profession into a place where every view is wanted and respected. If we initially have to create spaces, safe spaces to do this, then so be it. In this regard, in one of the sessional meetings on transformation, the question was asked, why do we not hear white males saying anything? And I realized that I was keeping quiet because I felt that my view was neither wanted nor respected in the situation. But then it dawned on me that many people in our profession, in our businesses, feel exactly that same way all the time. This needs to change, especially in the profession. So arising from my journey thus far, I am more convinced than ever that it is incumbent on all of us, and especially those of us who have traditionally had a dominant and privileged position, to open our eyes, ears, and minds, to listen to the lived experience of our colleagues, and to learn where our paradigms need to change to enable the profession as a whole to move forward to being relevant in our very specific context. So I challenge us all to find these opportunities for this engagement, such at the workshops at this convention, which I believe unfortunately are already full, and the activities that AWF are promoting. This engagement with transformation by all of us is key to the development of our profession, and Council has strongly recommended that each one of us should be considering how we should be engaging with this topic. And remember that activities like this fit well into the new outcomes-based CPD structure, as they will undoubtedly make you a better actuary. How much more will we as a profession become if everyone felt welcomed, appreciated, and inspired to succeed and contribute? In this space, I have been asking myself and others the question of what does good look like? And my challenge to you is to give thought to that question and send your thoughts on that and what practical inventions you should be doing to achieve it. For example, it has been suggested to me that good in the education process would be that the distribution of students entering the profession at the start of studies should be the same as qualifiers as associates and fellows at the end. During today, I've asked that there should be flip charts set up in the exhibition area to allow you to write down your ideas. And you can use the email address president@actuarialsociety.org.za to also send your thoughts to. However, transformation also not only requires a change in the demographic profile of the profession and a change in hearts and minds of all of us, but it also encompasses the work we do. This leads me to the last step part of our pot, relevance to the society and the public. In his 2010 presidential address, Themba Gamedze expressed the view that we need to challenge the value we provide to society or face becoming irrelevant. He stated, "It is therefore becoming critically important for us as professionals in general, and actuaries in particular, to challenge ourselves vigorously about the value we provide to society. In doing so, we shall find ourselves already on the road towards retaining and extending the relevance of our contribution, even in an environment of historically unprecedented change." His sentiments are no less valid today than they were then. Relevance to society covers a wide range of factors, and this is where my statement at the time of my election as the president-elect of us being valued professionals comes into play. We need to be adding value, being relevant to our employers, clients, and the wider society. If we do not do so, we run the risk of being technicians and relegated to a less relevant role than we would like, and what we can add will be significantly reduced. An outcome that I would certainly not want to see. Conversely, if we can demonstrate that we do add value beyond a technical expertise, we can most certainly expand our influence. I believe that we have done this well in the banking space and differentiate ourselves from other quants, but where else can we do so? For example, what do we add in the data analytics space that sets us apart from the data scientist? Whatever roles we play and whatever influence we have here in South Africa can be exhibited in the somewhat unique national situation that we have, where there is a confluence of the first world and the third world in one nation. To some extent, our influence in the past has been on the former, and I believe that we have done it well. Even recent developments in enterprise risk and banking have probably been weighted towards these sectors. This we need to continue, but I also believe we need to speak into the latter portion more effectively. In order as to be seen relevant as here, we need to be seen as more than the privileged few who provide services to the narrow interests of established financial services, but are also those who credibly speak into financial inclusion, public policy, social security, retirement reform, national health financing, and the like, from an ethical and unbiased position, untainted by commercial interest. Again, I refer to Themba's presidency, where in his 2012 presidential address, he said, "It is surely about time for a significant number of actuaries to give consideration to developing their careers in the public sector," a challenge that remains for us today. In my view, this topic of relevance to society is fundamental to the development and growth of our profession. It is an area where research, education, and communication strategies all need to play a role. For example, should we be changing our education and services to meet the needs of Stokveld, burial societies, and the more fintech versions of the shared economy? Furthermore, we need to recognize that the world of technology is racing on at an increasing pace, with new technologies developing all the time. I anticipate that this will require us to rethink some of our paradigms and open ourselves to a whole lot of new thinking. In this environment, we run the risk that unless we proactively address it, we will be dealing with matters, developing solutions, and training actuaries for an environment that no longer exists. The good news, though, is that I believe that the nature of actuaries in our training is such that we can cope with all of this diversity, change, and ambiguity. So what may be perceived as a threat also provides the seeds of opportunity. As a profession, let us continue to grow and develop as we deliver our professional promise and seek to become increasingly relevant, especially in our nation. I look forward to these next 2 years, and I pledge to seek to serve you as a servant leader to this profession. I thank you.